Welcome to On Top of the Covers, a weekly podcast by Orlove, dedicated to all of you amazing human beings out there, the creative visionaries, the entrepreneurs, artists, makers, disruptors, all of you really pushing the boundaries of creativity and art as a whole, right? And every week we feel very blessed. We've got tons of you guys tuning in, and we're featuring a lot of really inspirational stories of people contributing to the culture of music. And we like to focus on, how are they doing it creatively and artistically and personally and professionally? There's just so many ways that the commonality and the bond of music is not only bringing us all together, but it's also pushing a lot of boundaries, as I previously mentioned, right? For those of you that are new, I'm Matt Gottesman. I'm your host and the director of the Orlove brands. You can reach out to us on Instagram at We Are Orlove or at Matt Gottesman. For those of you that know, I've been answering each and every text and DM and reply and response the last almost decade online. So, I always appreciate the feedback. We really do in general. So you can reach out on either of the handles. And, as I mentioned, this commonality, this common bond in music. So we wanted to take things just a little bit further, and we wanted to open up the conversations, not just with the art, but also with the contributors and their missions. And we just wanted to look at unconventional ways and different paths to, the quote unquote word success, or whatever that is defined by the individual. And we have another amazing episode today, an amazing guest, Asad Malik. He's the founder of Jadu, and it's a leading mobile AR platform bridging the world of technology and art. It's building augmented reality metaverse. Don't worry, we're going to talk about what these things are. I was just telling him I'm a geek for all this stuff. And really, this platform is giving NFTs interactive capabilities like spatial and geographical and cultural context to bring 3D assets to life. Again, we're going to dive into all this and explain it, but you guys probably heard NFTs and you're automatically thinking like, yeah, I know, I need to know much more information. Well, don't worry, there's a lot more involved that's complementary to all of that. And, as I mentioned, Asad is the CEO of the app Jadu, and he carved out a pioneering position in AR for storytelling when his immigration-focused HoloLens project Terminal 3 premiered at Tribeca to critical acclaim in 2018. We'll talk a little bit about that. It was called The Most Intense AR Experience by Fast Company. And he followed up with a nuanced look into the ethics of AI with first third-party Magic Leap narrative, A Jester's Tale, at Sundance in 2019. It was featuring an Android-esque pop star, Poppy, and his work has been lauded for opening up new possibilities for the medium, earning critical acclaim in publications such as the New York Times, The Guardian, and Fast Company, and has since been exhibited at prestigious art centers such as Barbican in London. Asad was named one of Forbes 30 Under 30 for 2020 and Adweek's Young Influentials for 2019. He also made the Independent Filmmakers to Watch list, and he now sits on the board of trustees for Bennington College as a recent graduate. Asad, thank you for being here. I really appreciate having you.
Absolutely. No, my pleasure. Hearing you read my bio, it's like, wow, like all my work has just been so many buzzwords. Like, what does this even mean to a normal person?
I know, well, it's funny when you're a creator and you're an entrepreneur and you're constantly building, it's easy to just keep going without pausing and be like, and looking back and like, what did we do? So every now and then you have to have other people that celebrate you. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And I want to dive into, your background here shortly. And, I'm not sure how much you got to prep for this ahead of time, but, we always like to do rapid fire questions, but they're fairly easy. And we don't wait till the end. We don't wait till the end to do them. We'd like to do them in the beginning because it's fun to see our guests express themselves and like the things that kind of have nostalgic influence on them. Right. So we'll dive into those, and then I would love to dive into your background and how we got here, because you've done a lot of things, and I think it just brings great context. So without further ado, are you ready for a few quick questions?
Let's do it.
All right. If all music is just one day gone, like all music is being wiped away, but you're allowed to save 3 albums that mean something to you. It could be any 3 albums, and that's all you'd be able to listen to the rest of your life. What 3 albums would they be?
Yeah, wow. I definitely need a Pink Floyd album in there. It's a hard choice to make. I'm gonna have to go with Dark Side of the Moon and Metal, because Metal has Echoes, and Echoes is probably my favorite song in the world. So Got to do that. And I think then I would probably choose, a Pakistani Sufi album of sorts. I think I would grab an album of like Naira Noor, who is she sings ghazals, so she sings basically Faz's poetry. Faz is, a really well-known kind of poet from my region of the world, and really, I really love the stuff. It's very deep. I think it really shows the extent of the language. So I'm gonna have to go with Naira Noor doing Faz's ghazals and two Pink Floyd albums, Metal and Dark Side of the Moon.
Nice. I dig it. I like it. Well, I haven't heard the other album, so I'm gonna have to check that out. That's one of the best parts about that question is any music I haven't heard yet, and I've downloaded a lot of music, like 10 terabytes. So
Nice.
I get to add, always get to add. Question number 2 can sometimes relate to number 1. Name an influential person, living or non. It could be any time throughout history, any creator, any genius, any historical figure or current. That if you could spend one night or one full day interacting with, who would it be?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, I think it's probably not the most creative response, but I would really like some time with Isaac Newton, if anyone knows.
Mm,
Yeah,
that's a
I
good
think
one.
yeah, it's I can't grasp that he existed. Yeah.
I actually think that'd be one of the greatest conversations. And Isaac Newton or Leonardo da Vinci, or Marcus Aurelius, like the conversations in that realm. How do you fit it all in one day?
I mean, that's the thing with Newton, right? Like he had actually, by the time he was my age, I'm 25. By the time he was 25, he had at that point figured out that white light is made up of different colors, the universal laws of gravitation,
right.
had invented like calculus,
Mm.
at that age. So I think me being at this age, I often think like, I'm like, wow, like, I might be doing a bunch of things, but remember what Newton did.
Right.
So I think that would be an interesting conversation for sure.
Could you imagine? Wow. Yeah. I mean, his soul came in just straight delivering contributory societal,
And
uh, you know, uh, needs and philosophies. Okay. Number 3, in your opinion, what's the best music focused film of all time for you? And when I say music focused, it can be a documentary, a rockumentary, a fictitious movie, a series, or just
yeah,
anything.
I mean, I don't want all my responses to be Pink Floyd, but I mean, this question is meant for the wall, so I can't avoid that. So the wall will definitely have to be that
That's
music oriented film.
But that's very fair, though. I mean, it's the wall, So, okay. And then finally, question number 4: what's an important book, a podcast, maybe an Audible or a platform, something that's really helped you navigate your creativity and passion?
Hmm. So I would say Borges, like, is that the current pronunciation of his name? I hope it is. I hope I'm not butchering it, but Borges's short stories, they're
Hmm.
very like magical, like fantastical kind of stories, really well articulated. I've really leaned in on a lot of his stories before. They're often very short. So I think one that I would reference here is there is a short story titled On Exactitude and Science. On
Mm.
Exactitude and Science. And it's a very short story. It's literally like one paragraph. And the paragraph is actually structured to look like it's a reference in an old book. And really, the gist of what the paragraph says is that there was once a civilization that mastered the art of cartography, which is, map making. And they built a map of the whole kingdom that was as big as the kingdom. So it was a 1-to-1 ratio, which, in theory, kind of defeats the purpose of a map because it's a abstracted, like representation of a space. So that if it becomes the space, it was alluding to this idea of what happens when a map becomes as real as what it's trying to map. Does it become the real almost?
Mm.
And then he kind of goes on to say passing generations didn't care about this map, and eventually the map was shredded into pieces and you can still find remains of it in the desert, something like that. But to me, the story always kind of brought up why I'm in AR and VR. It's like this, this idea of kind of what happens when you recreate like a new version of reality that is indistinguishable, what does that do to your reality? So that's always been a really like curious thing for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you were talking about the map becoming as big as the actual location, I could see how that's completely related to your work. And
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to us actually really diving into that. That's actually a great segue, because for context, I would love for the audience to get an idea of your background. Like, how did we get here all the way to Jadu? And you can go as far back as you want, and your entrance into different things, and the decisions to create what you have that led up to now, go on a tear. I would love to hear, because the bio I gave is just a very small snippet of your journey. So how did we get here? And then from there, we're going to talk a lot more about the things that you guys are doing.
Yeah. So, to trace my story, we have to go to Pakistan. That's the only way to do it. So, I was born in Pakistan. I was born in a town called Abbottabad, which is a small kind of hillside station in Pakistan. It's kind of the gateway to the north. So you go to Abbottabad in order to go to K2 and, Gilgit and Kashmir and all those parts of the world that are really beautiful, valleys and meadows and snow-capped mountains, like, really snow leopards and things like that. So that's how I have known Abbottabad all of my life. But how the rest of the world knows Abbottabad is that Osama bin Laden was killed in Abbottabad. So Osama bin Laden was actually killed pretty much a 5-minute drive from the spot where I was born, the hospital that I was born in. And so that's something that's kind of a part of my identity that I can't really avoid, because it says on my passport I'm from Abbottabad, and whatever airport I go to, I have to kind of face that truth. But my story is that I lived in Pakistan until I was 16. My parents are both teachers, and I grew up in a really small town. And one thing that I developed over time was I always like had some kind of curiosity to want to create things on my own that other people can use or do things with. And for me, really, the moment was when I was 11. We got a DSL internet connection for the first time. We had internet before, it was just really bad dial-up. You couldn't really do anything with it. But this time we got one that was, usable enough. And my friends started to get on to Facebook and things like that. And, they had Orchid at that time, I think.
Yeah.
And oh, you remember Orchid? No one
Yeah.
remembers Orchid.
Yeah.
So my dad told me that since I'm not 13, I can't be on these platforms, the age you were supposed to be 13. So it kind of piqued my curiosity. I was like, well, what does it take to make a website? Because I can understand for a radio station, you probably need some satellite, you probably need some infrastructure. For TV, you need infrastructure. For website, like, what do you really need? I couldn't, like, my 11-year-old brain couldn't really, it wasn't tangible. So long story short, I started Googling how to make a website and ended up like really getting into making websites. So, I made a bunch of websites that my friends started using instead of Facebook and whatnot. We would talk to each other on those websites. And, over time, I started having audiences in other parts of the world, which was very shocking to me because, small town Pakistan, you're not really like interfacing with the rest of the world in any direct manner. We're watching American high school movies and like seeing yellow buses in locker rooms, but it's a really foreign kind of concept. And to actually have like white kids in the US that are sitting on their MacBooks, like interfacing with me while I'm like, sneaking into my dad's room to use his computer to make this website, just ended up being kind of a confidence boost where I was like, wait, I can do this thing in a way that's better than people that have more resources than me. I want to go deeper into it. So, I started just getting really into making websites, and then started getting into like learning more about products and Silicon Valley, and just really got into that Silicon Valley kind of mindset. And at 16, I ended up getting a scholarship that took me to the Netherlands, which was a shocking kind of turn of events, because people from my town don't really end up in the Netherlands for high school. That's not really a thing that happens. But I'd applied for this program, and one thing led to another, and I actually ended up getting the scholarship. And in the Netherlands, I ended up going to this like really prestigious international school where we had people from 90 different nationalities that were all 16-year-old kids that had left their countries to be here. And the school was, like Nelson Mandela was our president, and Queen Noor of Jordan was on the board, and the King of the Netherlands went to the school. I got to go to the palace of the king and gave a speech in front of the king when I was 16. And so suddenly my life went from like living in Pakistan, making some websites, to using those websites to actually show that I'm like a valuable candidate for the school. And then ended up in this situation where I actually had a lot of international exposure on a pretty high level. And so kind of, graduating from the Netherlands at that point, I just wasn't very interested in the higher educational system anymore. I really wanted to go build my own thing. So I kind of took a gap year. Me and my roommate were working on a project that, we were learning more programming and design and trying to really build a product. And once that year kind of came to an end, I had some pressure from my parents to go to school. They're like, look, you graduated from a prestigious high school. You can now go to the US, go to a school on a good scholarship. So, I ended up deciding that's a good move. So I chose Bennington College, which is an art school in Vermont, which it's a pretty expensive art school. And I got a full ride. So, that was worth a lot of money. But with Bennington, really, I didn't know exactly what to expect. I just knew that I wanted to go to a place that would give me more flexibility than a traditional university. And so Bennington's a weird place. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's kind of like they have no grades. It's 700 kids, roughly. And you have a lot of resources. You're in the middle of nowhere in Vermont. Nudity is legal on campus. Like, it's this really bizarre environment. Like one of the stories that often comes up is that there was this one house at Bennington that became a cult, and they were disbanded because they were sacrificing possums. And there was a story that at some point, the house decided to draw a pentagram on the floor. And when they removed the carpet, there was already a pentagram under the carpet. So like those were the kinds of like Bennington stories that we were interfacing with. So I moved to the US not that long ago. I moved to the US roughly 5 years ago, went to college in Bennington for 4 years, during which I set up my practice, which really was coming from this conflict of me wanting to have this Silicon Valley existence, whereas my school being filled with kids whose parents had already made money. Their parents had already done well in Hollywood or done well in Silicon Valley. Like they were jaded from those kind of ideals. For them, Silicon Valley and tech was like an evil entity, which now obviously that's a much bigger cultural context. And no one wanted to associate with that in any significant way. People there were all about expression. It was about, pottery and film and, tangibility. And I get that. I really get where that generation was coming from, but it was really distant from my background. So over time, I started to also engage with the idea of expression more and the idea of building work that was more narrative and expressive in nature. And, I know this was a long monologue, so I'll let you intervene here. But, that's where I kind of found AR and started to tinker with that more.
No, what I think is actually pretty cool is, so being around art and film and pottery and art in the physical world and expression. I don't want to say expressionism because that's started to tie into art, but like people expressing themselves. When you marry that with tech, and here we are in the middle of a revolution where, art has solidified a whole new place to be received, collected, and interacted with in a digital realm, without an artist having to actually pass on in life, before their work can be appreciated. So it's actually very interesting that you happen, I never say there's coincidences, but you happen to be around what might have been the physical while you were still very much enamored with the digital. And so, I mean, if Steve Jobs, where you look back and start connecting the dots, you're like, yeah, it actually makes sense why you're kind of doing some of these things now in a lot of ways too,
100%.
Right?
It's very traceable. I mean, yeah, right? Like you can definitely see the elements that kind of form the work now. Yeah.
So what happened from there? So you started creating. I know I mentioned in the bio, you did some pieces that went to Sundance, and then you and in AR is this passion of yours. How did we start interacting? How did we start building on top of these modalities?
Well, so the way it happened was that, I was playing around with different things. I was taking neuroscience classes and architecture classes and critical theory classes. And it was really in an architecture context that I tried the HoloLens for the first time. And I knew about the concept of VR and AR. I knew more about VR like most people did, but trying on the HoloLens, to me, it definitely ignited like this idea that this is a serious medium that's coming and work needs to happen here. And the work that's happening here right now is purely enterprise focused and utilitarian in nature. And if I can offer work here that is more narrative and expressive, it'll be establishing new grounds that haven't yet been established and are probably a few years away right now. So with that in mind, I actually like collected some money. I went to some hackathons, all that stuff, and ended up buying a HoloLens, which is a $3,000 device. It's a significant chunk of change for a college student.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a HoloLens, and then I started just playing with it, making little things with it. The things I was making were I would make a video of those things, put them online. I did 2 projects like that started gaining online traction and got a lot of views and got a lot of articles written about them. And there was kind of, something was bubbling there. Eventually, what happened was someone from Sundance saw one of my pieces that I'd done in some news website, I think on Vice or Quartz or something. And they reached out and they got on a call with me. And I really got along with this guy. We had some similar things that we were kind of interested in. And he was like, look, man, like we're doing VR at Sundance. We are like supporting like new forms of narrative work. We would love to see AR and we would love to see your brand of what you're doing with this stuff, which to me was kind of really, I was like, wait, so I can go to the Sundance Film Festival or the Tribeca Film Festival with this stuff right now? Like that's just crazy. So that ignited this kind of situation where I onboarded a bunch of my close friends from college, and I was like, you do music, you do animation, like let's just kind of bring you on board. We're going to Sundance. And I kind of insisted that is what's happening, although that didn't happen for another year and a half from that point. And since then, honestly, it's been like this really kind of sense of urgency. We're building something. Every 3 months, we have a new big project. And so we ended up building this thing called Terminal 3 that ended up getting into the Tribeca Film Festival. And at that time, it was kind of one of the first like AR-based anything that had existed at a film festival level. And the project was essentially coming from a lot of my experience traveling as someone who has a passport that says Aptabad on it. I've gone through a lot of secondary screenings. I had FBI show up in my college once in Vermont. So I've gone through a lot of those kind of moments. So Terminal 3 was basically this experience where you as the viewer would put on an AR headset and meet these holograms of various Muslim passengers that are supposedly coming into the country. And you have to interrogate them and ask them questions in order to figure out whether you want to let them into the country or not. So it was really very much like commentary on the Muslim travel ban at the time and things like that. And because of its political significance and relevance, it started to really like people started to talk about it and became kind of a highlight at the festival and was nominated for some awards. And we ended up taking it on a world tour and ended up in a lot of museums and a lot of festivals. So that was my junior year of college. And that kind of propelled me in this position where suddenly I had a project that was being taught at USC and UC Berkeley in their classes. And that allowed me a platform to raise more money, build more projects. So we did another project that then went to Sundance in 2019 that I won't get into details of. And then we kind of graduated and decided to move to LA. This was 2 years ago. Yeah, so when we basically moved to LA, we were actually very lucky. We got a relatively significant commission from Verizon to build an experience for them. And because of that, we actually built a hologram of Serena Williams. We built this interactive hologram of Serena Williams that is now being used in 200 schools across the country as part of an educational program.
One of the things that you brought up was interesting when you were saying, I was taking a couple of notes on it, but I liked when you said that when you were talking about like with Terminal 3, how it got people to start talking. I think whenever we make something innovative and creative that allows like for discussion that like, I didn't know that, or, oh, that's an interesting perspective. Oh, let me try, like, let me immerse myself. And I think that's always interesting. That's always like, it allows people to open up in general to possibilities that they hadn't otherwise thought of, which now more than ever in your work,
at that time, VR was supposedly doing that, right? People were
Mm,
calling VR the empathy machine. It was like
mm,
you can be in someone else's shoes. And that actually wasn't sitting that well with me because, people would go to a film festival, they would put on a headset and watch a 360 video of a refugee camp in Syria. And then they would step out of it being like, oh, now I know what it feels like to be in their shoes. And to me, that was just such like kind of a delusional sense of moral superiority that would come with doing that. That I was like, no, you don't know what it feels like. You're setting a Tribeca. You're in this like really privileged space in New York, like having this kind of experience. So for me, AR showed this other possibility, which was what are you going to do when someone else is in your space? When another object or another entity interacts with your surroundings, you perceive it as much more urgent and immediate, and you kind of your brain registers it in a very different way. VR can be very like you can be in a VR world and come back to your reality, and really your relation to that world is very dreamlike. It's like very far in some space versus AR, you have a tangible physical relationship to it because it's unfolding in your room. So even when you're looking at a hologram in your room, in one moment and then you're not looking at it anymore, you turn your phone off or your headset off, it still has a ghostly presence that's left in your room. You
mm.
still associate your room to it. And I think that's really interesting and powerful, and one of the reasons I've emphasized on AR.
And when was Jadu created?
So Jadu as a concept,
Yeah.
I have a notebook entry from like 4 or 5 years ago with Jadu. Jadu, literally the name Jadu as a concept for an AR platform at large. Now the problem always was, one thing that I saw with these experiences that we built was that, where do we put them? How do they reach an audience? They currently can go to festivals, but that's a limited audience. How do they reach real people? And the headsets that we were working with, like Magic Leap and HoloLens, we just didn't feel like those companies were ready yet for this kind of content. They want to currently it's all new. They want to focus on enterprise. Magic Leap was trying to do things that were more creative, but their approach was very like family friendly, Pixar like safe content. Whereas we were going for like, let's challenge a new medium. Like let's find what makes a new medium like exciting and what are the unique capabilities of AR that haven't been tapped into before. So we realized that we don't have any place to put this stuff. So we decided that we have to build our own. So the platform was obvious. It's just what is the starting point of the platform? That wasn't as obvious. We were tinkering with a lot of different ideas to get to what we thought was a good starting point. And so eventually we kind of got to the starting point, which was, a year and a half ago is when we really started Jadu. And the starting point was we're going to make holograms. We make very realistic holograms. We use a technique called volumetric video, where we capture talent with 106 cameras and they get recreated as a 3D video essentially. So it's not a 3D model that's rigged. It's actually a fully captured realistic performance. So what we did was it's a very expensive process. So we decided we're going to do 15-second holograms. Each of them are going to be a different musician performing something that is memeable and goes with music so that it has a universal appeal where you can watch it multiple times and you can make videos with it multiple times. And it has this kind of reusability built into it. And with that in mind, we started building a bunch of holograms with kind of a very TikTok oriented approach where, kids would make videos with their favorite artist to post on TikTok. And then all the, comments would be, how did you get this person in your video? And in just a year, we ended up in a position where we had Lil Nas X, for example, on the platform, and Pussy Riot, and Vic Mensa, and like a bunch of people that had real cultural significance, or people that had big trends on TikTok. We had Josh Richards, who's a really big TikTok influencer. So we kind of engaged these people, build their holograms, and let their audiences then record videos with them as if they were actually in your video. And I think Lil Nas X was really one of those moments where his song really blew up, and we had built a hologram for that song. So, we had 150,000 Lil Nas X's actually placed in people's rooms in augmented reality, which is pretty significant for this kind of realistic AR that people haven't seen before. It's really, people are used to filters, but this is really way beyond what they're used to. So we were able to kind of hit that moment the last couple of months.
I've got a list of people we can we can turn into holograms.
Uh-huh.
Let's do it. And so that's why I can see where they're entering into the NFT world, because it allows for an ongoing experience for the person who collects the NFT, purchases the NFT, and if they choose to resell it, but at least it allows to keep an experience in an ongoing way. So I'd love to hear how you guys are turning that now into NFTs and experimenting there. And then just
Yeah.
your take, earlier before we started on the show, we were starting to go in on blockchain, and I loved what you were talking about with blockchain. And feel free, to go on those tears about, NFTs and blockchain, because we're still early stage. Do we get it? Yeah, but there's sometimes that, like I was saying, the common perception when you say blockchain, people go, oh, like Bitcoin. You're like, no, but I mean that's a small, very small component. But a big one,
Sure.
a big, but meaning that there, we're dealing with technology, we're dealing with a new way of interacting and transacting online, and it really does affect a lot of different realms. So feel free to enter anywhere in that conversation that you feel like. So both blockchain and this kind of now moving more into NFTs as well.
Yeah, well, so the story, the way it goes is that, the concept of digital scarcity has existed in every way possible in games and, in relation to VR and AR. We always had digital scarcity as one of the key components of how we would build our AR platform, right? Now, exactly how that would work wasn't clear. We weren't there yet, right? We were just right now, our focus was how do you build really incredible, delightful moments in AR that are way beyond current moments in AR that people experience. But what happened earlier this year with a lot of people and us was that we actually saw NFTs become what they did, which was actually people were paying money to collect art that was becoming a store of value. And then, like it's a way of operating that hasn't existed before. It's so counterintuitive in a certain way to how the world currently works that I think for a lot of people it opened up their minds and they realized that things could be structured in this way. So for us, the way there were two things that immediately caught our attention. First of all, we actually made some sales. So Matt Gottesman on our team, he did the Grimes drop on Nifty Gateway that made $6 million. I released a Pussy Riot music video that I directed. This was a music video we had paid for, directed, it was ready to go. And we were expecting it to never make any money because music videos don't make any money. But just on the last couple of days, we were like, let's actually release it as an NFT. And we released it as an NFT and ended up making $500,000. And we were all kind of like shocked because, like music videos aren't supposed to do that. This was my first music video I directed, and it was very much a one-off kind of thing. And the fact that it ended up becoming like a pretty significant NFT drop just happened. It was kind of a chance encounter. So because of some of these moments, we saw that number one, there is a real opportunity to monetize AR, which is something that doesn't have a way of being monetized yet, right? It's a nascent industry that hasn't found models yet. So that's where NFTs were working so well, is they were giving money to people that had captured a lot of engagement on the internet over the last 2 decades, but never got anything for it. They were now able to capture some of that value. But to me, that was also opening up doors for new mediums that haven't yet been able to figure out business models to then figure out business models. So there was that aspect of it. And then the second aspect of it was this kind of idea of kind of an open interoperable metaverse, which all that means is that the assets can live in different places and are not tied to one platform. That's all we need to really know about it in order for it to be a really compelling technology, right? Like if your asset can live in one AR platform, but also another VR platform, and you can take it. And if one of the platform closes, that doesn't affect your asset because it actually does belong to you. You are holding it. That allows people to build ecosystems around objects rather than build objects in ecosystems. And I think that that's a very different way of thinking. And to me, that just makes intuitive sense that a world like that is probably going to be, one of the terms of phrases I kind of use a lot is this idea of creative chaos. I think we got to build the right infrastructure in terms of tools and platforms and everything, that it leads to the correct type of creative chaos where all of humanity pools and resources to build like this fantastical world that is like an epitome of creativity and self-actualization creatively and expression. And in order to get to that, you need to kind of build the right things. And to me, an interoperable world where things just go in and out and they're permissionless and you can take things and build on top of them, it seems like a really smart model that is very hard to compete with for any centralized entity. It's like it's the creativity that can possibly enable is so much richer that to me, it was like, okay, this is a great opportunity for us. We're not going to compete with the Snapchats and Facebooks and Instagrams of the world on their own game. That's just, they have too many resources. We can't beat them at their own game. However, this seems like a really, exciting new paradigm shift that we can actually lead and play a role in. So we kind of took the big leap of being like, we are going to go deep into this, and NFTs are going to be a really important part of what we do. Not because they're NFTs and they have value or something, but because we're going to do augmented reality. That's what we do best, but we're going to model it with these concepts of interoperability and whatnot. Well, so that's kind of a gist of, what encouraged us to enter the space. Yeah, sorry, you want to go ahead?
No. I mean, you just, and I was cutting you off. It was so good. You made a very strong point at the very beginning about think about the people who had created long periods of time on the internet without receiving some sort of monetary exchange in it, for that. And you use the word permissionless, which I love. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But, and I like the idea, the concept of it. If anybody is listening, because I know we'll geek out all day long, you made some really great points about, let's say you create something online that somebody that you have this, it exists. Let's just say it's a painting. It's digital form. Well, I'm going to go place that in Grand Theft Auto. Oh, you know what? Now I'm going to go place that over in whatever, metaverse, another like Decentraland or wherever it might be. I know people are listening like, wait, what? Like, let's just take video games and bring it down for the people who are like, you put it in this video game, sure, and you put it in that video game over there. You're used to seeing sponsorships. Normally people sponsor a video game, Rockstar Games, right? You sponsor a game, you say, hey, you got millions of people playing the video game. I want to see, I want them to see our brand. So like, we'll just put that in there. Game, to your point, the game stops or the game goes down or is no longer in use. That's it for the sponsorship. In the new world with an NFT, you're the owner of it, so it can go onto different platforms. It can exist in multiple locations. And if something shuts it down, you're not shut down. You still have that ownership. You still have that, the origin of where it exists. Mm-hmm. And I think that is phenomenal when you think about the changing landscape of rights and ownership. And of course, music and video are a beautiful, art to be consumed and owners to own, without a lot of extra people kind of in the middle, making sure that doesn't, because that's a newer paradigm than what we were normally used to, right?
Yeah, totally, 100%. I think, the current paradigm had a lot of holes and issues, and, we exist now in a world where everyone is a creator. Everyone has some form of expression attached to them. There are all kinds of micro communities. There are all kinds of subcultures online. People have 5 different aesthetics that they're subscribed to, that they explore in different times of their day. And, it's a very different world from how it was a couple decades ago, where kind of one centralized industry could somehow entertain everyone and somehow could satisfy everyone's creative needs. So because of this kind of new space we're in, these kind of models just make it so that you can do things that aren't like, you don't have to release an album. An album is a construct created by an industry. It's like, if you can divide your songs into this and this and this, and it can be this length, and it can play on the radio, and can have a music video that can go on MTV. Like, it has these, the art is modeled after the way it's going to be distributed. The distribution controls the actual format of it, which is a limiting way to start, right? Like, ideally, art should be the best way it can express what you need to express. and then you figure out ways of distribution. And there are people. So this new model kind of is hopefully going to allow for just new formats of art. Someone could release something that is where the visuals are as important as the audio, or like these things are now variables to be played with, and they will all find their own collectors and communities that may not be completely overwhelming, and they won't be like big stars or anything, but they'll be able to make a living doing the creative, like expressive work that they want to be doing. So there's definitely, that stuff is definitely exciting. But for me, I think the most exciting part definitely is, like, for us, is that imagine if we have a world of objects where, like, ownership is proven, people actually have the stuff that they take around, those objects have interactions with each other. It just all becomes like a tangible thing, right? When you go to VR randomly or AR randomly or try a filter, it's the most throwaway type of thing. Like an Instagram filter at this point is the most ubiquitous, like throwaway, like swipe away kind of thing that you don't really are going to have like anything too much with. You might find a cool one every once in a while, but it doesn't really hold any value necessarily. Versus in this case, every item holds tangible, physical, real world value. Your perception of it changes. You perceive it with much more weight, and you interact with it with much more weight. So, so basically, long story short, the direction we're going into, we have been, fine-tuning our terminology. This is stuff that we're about to start releasing. We've been working on for the last 3 or 4 months, like very focused. It's been a very exciting, very creatively interesting time. The team has grown. We have a bunch of new people. It's been really exciting to kind of play with these new concepts as they're coming out. Things keep changing every day. But we've been doing a lot of work that is going to start to release over the next couple of weeks now. And the umbrella we're kind of putting over everything is this concept that we are calling the mirrorverse. So the idea of the mirrorverse basically is the mirrorverse sits at the intersection of the metaverse and physical reality. It's not a subset of physical reality or the metaverse. It's kind of the Venn diagram center piece, essentially, right? And it is a two-way stream. It's basically, the idea encapsulates real people becoming holograms, becoming digital, a real object being scanned to become digital, as well as digitally native items like an avatar collection or an NFT coming into the physical world and then having relationships to the physical world. That's kind of where we want to sit, So everything we're going to be doing is part of that vision from now on.
I was thinking, I can see how it's going in. And then I was thinking about it when, like, turning an NFT into the physical. So if I'm understanding that correctly, I mean, especially with the power of 3D printing, but like making an NFT into the physical world, that's how I was like conceptualizing. I was like, I guess that actually I could see how that would be drawn from the digital into the physical. I mean, we have the power to obviously make the physical into the digital.
Yeah. So when I say digital into physical, I don't exactly mean like, materially, like creating it.
Okay.
I mean more in the context of AR, of kind of
right. There you go.
So yeah, exactly. So for example, when we talk about, let's say, like, for example, are you aware of Meebits?
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you think I should give an intro for people that aren't?
Yes.
Okay, great. So basically, I think a lot of people have heard of CryptoPunks that were created by a company. It's a team of 2 people called Larva Labs. They created CryptoPunks, 3 or 4 years ago. And it became kind of one of the first collections, along with CryptoKitties, that was an NFT collection. And so the idea is that these are 10,000 characters that are all pixelated characters, and they all have unique traits that are, you can kind of see what the traits are, but none of them are the same. And they were initially airdropped for free to a bunch of people. Over time, they started gaining value and cultural capital, and are now actually, like, the cheapest CryptoPunk is going for like almost $100,000 right now. And so it's become this kind of like, the Bitcoin, if you may, of NFTs in that sense. And what's interesting with CryptoPunks is that it offers some fungibility for a non-fungible asset, right? It offers some liquidity. it gives you like an asset that has some traits that you can compare to other people's assets, and you can form a community that exchanges them, which makes it more liquid. So you could buy one and have some kind of guarantee that you can sell it whenever you want, you know? So basically the creators of CryptoPunks then created something called Meebits, which are 20,000 characters, and they're actually 3D characters, which is a new thing. They're actual 3D models. So when you purchase Meebits, you get access to the 3D files. So for us, one of the first things that we're building right now is we are building the ability for people that own Meebits to bring those Meebits into AR. So how that works is that you can authenticate your wallet, confirm that you own the character, and then approve it to exist inside the Jadu's Mirrorverse. And what that does is it allows those assets to then show up in your space, and you can control them. They're now playable characters. You can, they can run into walls, they can like interact with each other, they can play games, they can have all kinds of interactions with other NFTs, they can build relationships with other NFTs. So to prove that concept, we're going to be releasing an NFT series at the end of this month, which is our first kind of collectible series, which is what we're calling the Jadu Jetpack. So we built these jetpacks that let your Meebits and other characters fly inside AR and in other virtual worlds. So if you buy a jetpack, your Meebit can wear a jetpack, fly around with a dongle in the physical world, play things, and like have the ability to do things that it can't without a jetpack. And you can take that jetpack to other virtual worlds like Sandbox and use it on your characters there as well. So it becomes this utility-based item that brings various collections together. You can use the jetpack on Meebits or on any other collection that we support over time. And so that's like what we're trying to show, that you can have objects with relationships to each other and the physical world. And that's how we want to build this.
That's amazing, man. That's like, you guys got to be pretty excited about all of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, been, as I was saying, like the sleep has been limited. That's why I was not turning my video on, is because I was up till like 5 a.m, just kind of, it's just an always on state. You're always kind of finding new things that get really exciting. So we're pretty close to a bunch of really like interesting moments, I think, where a lot of these NFT assets that currently are only just theoretical things, like you talk about interoperability and permissionless and all these things, but they're just in theory ideas. And now that we're going to start to see them actually in practice, and the kind of gaming worlds and the kind of like things that they are going to enable are going to be so different from everything else that they're going to, I think, be very attractive.
And so that's all launching the end of this month. Wait, August?
Yeah,
or the end of September?
We actually just started our Discord
Nice.
recently, a day or two ago, so we're kind of getting that going. And so the intention is that late next week, we're hoping to start putting out some of the Meebit features that I was describing. And then at the end of this month, we launch jetpacks. Currently, we're saying that they're going to be 1,000 of them, which makes them very scarce, all things considered. There are 20,000 Meebits, there are 10,000 Bored Apes, there are 10,000 CryptoPunks. There are so many new series coming out that the fact that there are only 1,000 jetpacks that all the assets have to kind of share, I think should put them in like a scarce position where there should be a lot of demand if we do our job right. So we're pretty excited about launching them and kind of proving to our investors, future and current, and everyone else, that these ideas that we have around interoperability and assets going from one place to another, when put in practice, they're just really going to create a very, very compelling world. That it's just a better mindset of building these things than like filters. And that's also something that I've kind of started to realize that it's very limiting, is that mobile AR right now, you do mobile AR with the lens of recording a video. Like almost all mobile AR is a filter that you have a swiping kind of camera controller where you swipe to switch between one asset at a time, right? You can't really have them intermingle with each other. It's just going to be one thing at a time. And you record a video in which you convert a 3D experience into a 2D experience before you even have the 3D experience, really. And we are trying to go into the direction where we emphasize the 3D experience. We're recording the video as a secondary thing almost. You want to be in it, basically.
That's incredible. So, in other words, I should hook up my MetaMask to Meebits, grab a Meebits, then grab a jetpack at the end.
I mean, not
Hmm.
financial advice.
I know, right? I use that all the time, especially on my IG stories. I'm like, not financial advice, not financial advice. But hey, look at this cool thing, you know. That's incredible, man. Really, really, really cool stuff. So that's what's coming up next. That's like your guys' top priority right now. Any other fun things like on the horizon that you're like starting to kind of move into production at this point?
Yeah. So one other thing that we're doing is that we're putting narrative really at the focus of
Hmm.
everything we're going to be doing. Like, we don't want to be a typical Silicon Valley tech company where the intention is to be as neutral as possible, and where, your design language is such that everyone ends up with the same design of, like, a simple white or black background with a simple image on top and this kind of simple text, and it ends up like in the same position more or less. We are trying to do things where, we have more of a voice, we have more of a narrative voice in our users experience. It's more like a game because of that. Games have voices, right? So we are kind of building a Jadu lore world as well that we're going to be revealing very slowly over time. So initially, with this new version of the app that comes out late next week, what's going to happen is that when you download it for the first time, you unlock this astrolabe, which astrolabes are kind of these like ancient devices that you could use to map out, celestial bodies, things like that. So it's kind of this floating magical entity that the world tells you that, the astrolabe is this magical thing that you use to project holograms.
Hmm.
So, we give a narrative reason to why the holograms exist, and then over time, so we're calling the astrolabe the astral. And so the astral, you unlock new charms for the astral over time, and each charm lets you perform some function. So we have kind
Gamification.
of a charm that's going to let you draw and create an AR. We have a charm that's going to let you do spatial audio in AR. We have, a charm that's going to let you control characters like Meebit. So, we are building a narrative kind of lore like universe that's kind of connect these items and give you quests and tasks and games to kind of engage with as well.
That's incredible. What do you tell people right now that I get this stuff and I'm loving like all the things that are happening? What's your advice to people who are like, okay, I know this stuff is happening. What's a great entry point for those that, like if they're coming to you and saying, like, what's a great entry point for learning some of the different things that are taking place? I usually just pass the book Token Economy to them.
Mhm.
I'm like, well, your start to finish on tokenization, blockchain, crypto, the metaverse, all the things that are happening. That's maybe a decent start, but a lot of it's also just from hands-on. I mean, you've been playing around with the internet since, you were a child. I've been playing around with the internet since I was a child. So I get it. Because this is going to become more of a normal thing, blockchain and NFTs and all that stuff. I know it's got a little bit of a ways to go, but to
Yeah.
get people, kind of thinking about this stuff more and saying like, okay, I want to understand utility and I want to understand use case and I want to understand the technology and finance, all the different things that are associated in art. What do you advise? What's your advice for that?
hmm
You know?
Well, so in terms of advice, in terms of someone who's listening to this conversation and is like, "Wow, these things are not
Right.
what I'm used to, but I want to
Right.
get into it." For in that scenario, I think the main thing I would say is that it is all very new, right? It's
Hmm.
all kind of been figured out. It is happening. There's clear like value in this stuff. So I would encourage people to actually go and try to immerse themselves with
Hmm.
the community to a certain extent. And where do these projects live right now? They live on Discord, Twitter, and Clubhouse, pretty much. Like, I think that those three are really the predominant locations where you can go looking. So if you join a random Clubhouse room and listen to people talk about NFTs. You can go follow a bunch of those people, end up on their Twitters, and you can see a bunch of projects they're discussing. Then you can go to the Discords for those projects and you can see people prepping up for a collection drop or something like that. It's really, that's where the groundwork is being laid out right now. So I would encourage people to actually like make some kind of Twitter account that's not their main account and just go exploring. Like, it's very exciting as well. There are a lot of new projects. Everyone's excited for different things. You can kind of explore through and see where you land. There are giveaways all over the place. Everyone's giving away something. We are giving away a Meebit, actually. So, you know, like, I don't know if I can plug that more directly, but like,
Yeah.
So our Twitter is Jadu Hologram, JADU HOLOGRM. And we are giving away a Meebit that we purchased a week ago for the giveaway. And we got it at that time for, you know, I think it was 1.8 Ethereum or something like that. It was roughly $5,000 that we purchased it for. Now the Meebit floor has gone up so much and Ethereum has gone up since, that now the same Meebit is actually worth $12,000 from last week. You know, so if you win an asset like that, that's actually a huge entry point for you, because then you have so much, you know, that you can use already to, you can sell that, you can have a bunch of Ethereum that you could use on other NFTs. You can really immerse yourself in the ecosystem. So although it is like technically not easy to get into, it is very rewarding. I think a great entry point, honestly, could be Axie Infinity. Are you familiar with Axie Infinity?
I'm not, no.
So this is like, to me, I think Axie is really one of the, it's a great way to see where the future is heading, because they were 3 years ahead of everyone else, in my opinion. They started in 2017. They knew what was happening at that time. The things we were trying to do now, they knew 3 years ago, and they built out a lot of infrastructure to get it ready. Now, over the last 3 or 4 months, Axie has been explosive. It's basically like utilizing kind of a play to earn model that you might be hearing more and more about. Really, the concept is that you buy an NFT, you buy these Axies. You have to buy 3 Axies in order to enter the game. And when you buy the 3 Axies, you then take them to the game. You can use them to battle other teams of Axies. And the more you battle, the more of their token you win. So it's an actual token, you know, you win the token. And you can use the token to then breed more Axies. And when you breed more Axies, you can sell those Axies to new players that are trying to enter the game. So it's a demand and supply loop where new players have to buy Axies from other players in order to enter. And this model is working so well that like it's become huge in the Philippines. 60% of their users are in the Philippines, because these guys are making so much more money playing this game than they would, you know, like taking a local job or something right now. And because of that, there's an influx of real money from other parts of the world flowing into the Philippines economy now. And the Philippines, there are 10 different companies that have set up like scholarship programs that are buying Axies for people that can't afford Axies to help them enter the game so they can then make more money. It is absurd. So just to give you like an idea of the scale, top 3 weeks ago, when I got really obsessed with them, they had 300,000 users daily active. And now they have 1 million daily active users, and they've done over $1 billion in volume already.
Wow.
And it's so new. Like last month, they did more revenue than Roblox. And this is like their 3rd or 4th month of like existing and making revenue, whereas Roblox has existed as a publicly traded company and like has been around for 17 years. This stuff is happening in a really significant way right now. It's just not mainstream yet, but it's gonna, you know, although the UX is bad and you have to do all these things and connect this wallet and put this money and do all these like things that are clearly barriers, what you get on the other side is so valuable, and people are also making so much actual money off this that it's going to be unstoppable when it really takes off and when everyone learns about it.
Yeah, I'm on the website right now, Axie Infinity. Interesting. So interesting. And 70% of the users, you said, was it? Wow.
60%.
60% are in the Philippines.
Yeah, it's like, I think that one thing that, you know, if one hangs out in the clubhouses and whatnot, definitely a lot more people from like Pakistan and India and Philippines and a lot of these kinds of parts are starting to participate, because it's actually a lot of money. Like even 0.1 ETH is actually a significant amount of money. it's like, enough money to live by like 2 weeks or something, So that's a really interesting thing that's going to be happening. It's like, to me, it's also a new way of mobilizing resources.
Yes.
Like, can you build a game that pays people so they can perform a function that is beneficial for everyone involved in that game? So every player is offering utility to every other player, and that's what makes the ecosystem valuable. So traditionally, you would have Rockstar Games or someone that would build, let's say, GTA, or Fortnite. I think is a great example of, a game that's built by, thousands of game designers and engineers sitting together and making a thing. And then players just play it, and then they buy skins in the game that are tied to the world. You're not actually buying anything. It's just you're kind of renting it in the game. You can't take it out of the game anyway. And then all of that revenue is actually captured by the creator of the game and not by the players. Versus this model flips it around. It says players are performing a function that is making the game more playable for everyone else. And for that, they're getting paid. And if they make money and are paid, they're going to want to engage even more. So I actually really do subscribe to this idea that we're going to look back 10 years from now and be like, wow, we used to play games that didn't pay us,
I think this brings it out, and I know we're about out of time, but like I'm so glad you brought that up, because this brings two very vital points, which is, for me at least, one, this idea of democratization, where we can all do well and we can all contribute and we can all earn well from our output we get, direct, versus just a select few, right? And I think that's blockchain in a lot of ways. That's that's the concept a lot within the blockchain and the metaverse and in the technology. And I think that brings up a second point, which is sometimes that's actually very hard for people to believe, because of the old system of like, no, this is the only way to do it. And not only is this the only way to do it, I'm technically doing the labor output for the people who are technically, and it's fine in terms of entrepreneurship, but like, I like the idea of we all win or I'm not in. Like, it's cool that like, actually you can have, a greater economy, from
100%.
From your creativity, basically, and more ownership over from your productivity.
It's like the model basically says, if you redistribute money to your community, you will actually make more money. And that's, I think, really fascinating. There's a really lengthy article on Axie and their model on a website called Not Boring. It's worth the read. I would plug that briefly, but I think they break it down a good bit, so you can really see that, here's a game that captures 100% of user revenue. It goes to the game creator. Then you have something like Roblox, where they capture pretty much all of it, but roughly like 20% of it goes back to the kind of community games that are being built on Roblox that kind of those developers get something out of, so 20%. Whereas with something like Axie, they take a 4% cut. Everything else is really like the community is making that money. And just because it's so enriching for everyone involved and there are big amounts involved now, that 4% is actually really significant.
And the first concept of me understanding that was from dApps, decentralized apps. And I was like, because you and somebody was asking me like, well, can you explain that? I'm like, well, if you think about it, I'm like, right now, what happens is you create something and you hope that the stores from the different various providers accept you. If they accept you, and you got to go through some things. And then once they do, a percentage of your revenue here, a percentage of your revenue there, a percentage of your revenue there, we're going to take this, we're going to take that. I was like, in a decentralized app, basically they're saying, make what you're going to make. You're paying for the gas fees of being, call them hosting fees of being on the blockchain.
Right.
And we'll take our small percentage. We hope you thrive because if you thrive, you'll continue to stay on the blockchain doing this beautiful thing. And we're going to do this for millions of other people as well, too. Hence a concept of like, we're winning and you're winning. You're doing your work. We're doing our work. Congratulations. Oh, and we're not going to control you at any given moment, So that was my entrance into like, once I saw what was happening with dApps, I'm like, oh God, this is beautiful. So I'm going to check out that article too. Malik, Asad, this is incredible. I was calling you by your last name. This is incredible. Where can everybody find out about like what you're doing? Where can they connect with you or, Jadu online? What are all the places and spaces?
So yeah, for sure. No, this was really lovely conversation. It's good to speak to someone who's in the space enough, and one can kind of get deep into. I hope that I wasn't too meta for most of the audience here, but yeah, I think a great way to kind of come engage with me, but also in general with some of these ideas and NFTs and AR and things like that. I think to learn more, because we're going to be releasing a lot soon. My Instagram is Asad J Malik, so AsadJMalik. That is also my Twitter, which I'm trying to use more of. And Jadu is Jadu Hologram on Twitter and Instagram. I think really, if you are going to end up in one place, I would invite you to our Discord, because that's really where, Instagram, Twitter, I have audiences that don't care about NFTs as much either. So, Discord is really where we can go deep. One can ask questions. We have channels. A lot of our releases are going to be coming out there. So the easiest way to get to the Discord is jadu.ar/Discord.
Beautiful. This is incredible. Thank you for your time and all that you're doing and getting out ahead and helping people understand it. And I agree. I love when I can geek out on this, and I try to do my best where I love going meta, but I love getting somehow micro and grounded and say you guys, this is what's gonna happen. So if we were to interpret what we're saying, but it just, I think and there's some really amazing points in there. You're kind of bringing up of look, you were already kind of doing some of these things, whether it was playing video games or doing certain jobs and having certain interactions. Well, in a newer world, it's rewarded differently, and ownership is more likely, as is freedom. So in its very, very short way of saying, a lot of things, that there's just a lot more opportunity to thrive off of the work and productivity and creativity you bring to this world, so I think it's incredible, and it's gonna be fun to just continue on your journey and connecting, and I'll be following along. I will be joining the Discord as well, just to feel normal. I'm in a few of the different ones there. You're like, my people, okay, it's not just me, so I really, really, truly appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And hang back for one second. But for everybody listening, we'll make sure to put the show notes, all the different things that we talked about, where you can find Asad and Jadu and, some of these different, we'll put the links in there as well too. Just a really special thanks for all of you guys, tuning in to On Top of the Covers. And it means so much to us and the movement, and not just the contribution of music culture, but art and technology and all of the different areas that we're starting to kind of bridge together. For those of you that have been giving us feedback, thank you. It means a lot to us. Please feel free to give us a 5-star written review on Apple. That obviously also helps expand the show. As mentioned earlier, you can follow us on all major platforms at We Are Orlove and at Matt Gottesman. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You can totally interact with us. It is us answering it. I love building community. If you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, iHeart, radio.com, wherever, you can watch this on YouTube. I'm sure I'll put enough of the tag words on all of this stuff. So I have no doubt you'll find us one way or another, because we're talking about some really interesting things. But you can subscribe to us there and interact with us. You can leave feedback. We're happy to interact with you guys as well too. And we just truly, truly, truly appreciate you guys. And we're out.